call to order the Wilmington City Council's regular meeting of Tuesday, October 17th, and I'd like to welcome everyone who's joining us here this evening, as well as those of you at home that may be watching on government TV or later streaming it on the city's website. I'd like to note that obviously the mayor is not here this evening. He is under the weather, but will be back in action in a day or so. At this point, I would like to welcome Clifford Barnett, and he will give us our invocation. If you will all rise and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Eternal God, there's a lot of things going on in our world, and as we pause at this city council meeting, we thank you for not only the things that we hear, but we are thankful, God, for the privileges of the things that we don't hear. Like, for example, right now we don't hear bombs falling around us. We don't hear infants crying. We don't hear parents struggling because their sons or daughters are missing. We thank you, God, for the privileges that you grant us as we work to make our world a better place to live. And so I'm reminded of the hymn we used to sing when I was a kid, let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as our Father, brothers all are we. Let me walk with my brother in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth. And God, would you be so kind as to let it begin with me. In his name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have several presentations this evening. The first one is a presentation of accreditation NCLEA to the Wilmington Police Department. And at this time, I'd like to recognize retired Chief Chris Blue, Chairman of the Criminal Justice Education and Training Standards Commission, and of course, welcome our Chief Williams and his staff. So at this time, I would love to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, Mr. Manager, town staff, city staff, my apologies. I come from the town of Chapel Hill, excuse me. It is a pleasure to be here with you this evening on behalf of the North Carolina Criminal Justice Education and Training Standards Commission, where I have the honor of currently serving as the chair. Tonight we're here to recognize Chief Williams and his team for some remarkable achievement, and I want to tell you a little bit about that. As one of the first agencies accredited under the newly created law enforcement accreditation program for the state of North Carolina, this is truly a significant accomplishment. The NCLEA accreditation program has been developed by public safety practitioners, academics, citizens, and law enforcement leaders, and its 116 rigorous standards are reviewed continuously to ensure that each remains current and relevant. Those standards cover a wide range of administrative, operational, and logistical areas and serve as models for those agencies that are in pursuit of excellence, as the Wilmington Police Department clearly is. Wilmington City leaders, community members should take comfort in knowing that your police department is committed to operating at the highest levels under a set of rigorous law enforcement standards. I have with me this evening a letter of support from the Attorney General, and with your permission, I'd like to read it into the record, if I may. To Mayor and Council, The North Carolina Criminal Justice Education and Training Standards Commission authorized a pilot accreditation program in 2021 after almost 5 years of planning and preparation. The Wilmington Police Department was one of 7 agencies selected as a pilot agency, and they were tasked with proving compliance with those 116 accreditation standards I mentioned before. Effective in June 2023, the NC Law Enforcement Accreditation Program was approved by both the North Carolina Criminal Justice Standards Commission and the Sheriff's Standards Commission. The NCLEA is staffed by members of the North Carolina Criminal Justice Standards Division under the direction of the North Carolina Department of Justice. And the NCLEA has been formed with specific support from the Sheriff's Association and the North Carolina Association of Chiefs of Police based on a recognized need to develop professional standards to enhance the delivery of police services to citizens. With the inception of the program, the NCLEA will accredit agencies under standards developed by the best public safety practitioners and leaders. These standards are reviewed continuously to ensure that each is current and remains relevant, and they cover a wide range of areas, as I said before. The rigorous law enforcement standards are designed to enhance crime prevention capabilities, formalize essential management practices, establish fair and non-discriminatory personnel practices, improve service delivery, and increase community and staff competence in the agency. I commend Chief Donnie Williams, the women and men of the Wilmington Police Department, and the leadership of the City of Wilmington for your commitment to doing the right thing in the right way and your ongoing dedication to ensuring the agency's resources are appropriately developed, effectively deployed, and constantly managed. Josh Stein, Attorney General. Mayor Pro Tem, may I leave that with you?
Yes, sir.
And based on the goals and the mission of the NCLEA, I can think of no better time or place to present the accreditation certificate than in a public setting like this. Congratulations, Chief.
Yes. Standing here, the women and men of the police department once again have made me proud as the agency head, and I want them to continue to make you proud as our citizens. Earning this accreditation does not by no means make us perfect. We will make mistakes, but I give you our commitment that we will work as hard as we can to serve you every day and meet your needs. And I want to thank all of you for supporting us. I want to thank Chief Blue for taking the time to come down, our city council, and my city manager, Tony Cottle, who leads us all each day. Thank you all.
Congratulations. On behalf of the entire council, we are all very proud of you. We are thrilled to have you as our police chief and wish you the best to continue on doing all the good things. Thank you. Our second presentation this evening is from the Wilmington Urban Area MPO for the fiscal year 23 annual update. And at this time, I will recognize Mr. Mike Kozlowski, the WMPO's Executive Director. Welcome, Mike.
Well, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. Thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight. We actually have a tag team presentation. I'm going to go over our annual report, and then Senior Transportation Planner Vanessa Lacer is in the audience and is going to present on Cape Fear Navigating Change 2050. To set the stage for our annual report, one of the priorities of our board is to, in their strategic plan, is to go out to our members and identify the programs and services that we provide. And so we thought that our annual report would be a way to do that. So just a little bit about metropolitan planning organizations. We were created out of the Federal Highway Act of 1962 for any urbanized area population of 50,000 or greater. We are the federally mandated and federally funded transportation planning agency for the Wilmington region. There are 19 MPOs in the state of North Carolina and over 400 across the country. We are created to conduct transportation planning in a continual, cooperative, and comprehensive manner, and we strive to do that. It's important to point out that in 2012, we were actually designated as a transportation management area, which meant our population increased to over 200,000. With that, there were additional reporting requirements, as well as we were the recipient now of about $5 million annually in direct attributable funds that we get to disperse to our members through our competitive process. The Wilmington MPO was established in 1973 based on the 1970 decennial census. We provide transportation planning services for 494 square miles, serve a population of about 300,000 people. We do provide transportation planning services for 7 municipalities and all or portions of 3 counties, and our members are listed here on this slide. We have a 13-member board that sets the policy and direction for the organization. You should recognize 2 faces on this slide. One is Councilman Luke Waddell, who serves as our vice chairman, and then the other is Councilman Neil Anderson. We have a number of federal requirements and responsibilities. One, which Vanessa will talk about here in a little bit, is our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and it's required to be updated every 5 years. We're currently operating under Cape Fear Moving Forward 2045, but are in the midst of updating that plan. We do administer the direct attributable program. As I mentioned, we receive about $5 million that we disperse to our members through that competitive process. We develop a congestion management process. We evaluate 33 major corridors throughout the region, also conduct hotspot analysis at major intersections, and the recommendations from this congestion management process feed into our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. We also adopt our functional classification system. This is the hierarchy of roads in our region, as well as participate in development review activities and traffic impact analysis review, as well as manage the transportation demand management program, which strives to get people out of their single occupancy vehicles, promoting walking, carpooling, van pooling, teleworking, things of that nature. We have a staff of 12 within the MPO. This slide just demonstrates an overview of what I'm going to highlight today, and so I just wanted to provide this as some supplementary information. One of the things that we did over the past year is we conducted an organizational assessment. This was really intended to enhance the effectiveness and efficiency of the organization. We hired Scott Lane Company to perform this analysis, and he provided recommendations in short, mid, and long-term action items. And so we do intend to implement this organizational assessment as we move forward. We were involved in a number of long-range planning efforts, as I mentioned, the congestion management process, but we've also participated in the collector street plan for the town of Nevassa, as well as a bicycle and pedestrian plan in the town of Nevassa. Both of those plans were adopted in the FY 22-23 fiscal year, and it's important to point out that our fiscal year runs from July 1 to June 30. We were also participated in a number of other planning efforts. One is the Pender County Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan. That plan was actually adopted by the commissioners last night and will be presented to our board at an upcoming meeting. And then also the Walk Wilmington Pedestrian Plan, which this board did adopt. We were the recipient of 2 NCDOT feasibility study grants. One is for the Gullah Geechee Heritage Corridor, and the second is for the Downtown Trail Phases 2 and 3. We're also participating with the East Coast Greenway on the Island Greenway in Curry Beach, and have worked with the City of Wilmington on the Riverwalk extension. We have been involved in the development and adoption of the 2024 to 2033 State and MPO Transportation Improvement Program. This is a culmination of about 2 years of work to adopt that program, and there's several steps that are taken in the development of that program, from project submittal to scoring to assignment of local input points to the culmination, which is the adoption of this report and program. And so that program was adopted by the MPO board in August. And so with that, we started the next process, which is prioritization 7.0. The MPO gets 20 project submittals per mode, and we are working to submit those project submittals. In addition, President Biden signed the federal infrastructure bill in November of 2021. That included a number of discretionary grant opportunities. We have applied for the Safe Roads and Streets for All grant that will provide a community safety action plan for our region, as well as a Protect grant that we would use to develop a resiliency improvement plan. Vanessa's going to talk about the transportation plan. So the board did adopt the name Cape Fear Navigating Change as well as the brand, but I'm going to let Vanessa overview this in more detail here in a few minutes. Some of the highlights, we did have a successful Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration certification review. We are required to be reviewed no less than every 4 years. When you become a transportation management area, that is a federal requirement, and so we have had a successful review. We've been coordinating with the North Carolina Department of Transportation on the replacement of the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge. We've had a number of achievements through the strategic plan. We've also been awarded 100 bicycle helmets through the NCDOT's Bicycle Helmet Grant, and we're in the process of giving those away, as well as we work with NCDOT on August redistribution, and in our working with the state, we were able to bring an additional $265 million in additional obligation authority to the state of North Carolina. The Transportation Demand Management Program, Go Coast, we've had a number of successes with that program. We've had the Brunswick Heritage Ride, the River to Sea Ride. We have celebrated the 2023 Year of the Trail, as well as we have increased our social media reach through that program. We are renovating a historic building downtown, the Thomas Grocery Building, which was built in 1894. We're continuing to rehab that building and anticipate to be in that building in early 2024. We also have a technical services side, so we have essentially two sides of the house, our planning side of the house, which we talked about with the plans that we've developed, but then also the technical services side. And so they focus on development review, traffic impact analysis review. They manage our traffic count program, and then they also manage our direct attributable program. And so MPO staff have been involved in over 1,100 site development reviews, over 70 traffic impact analysis reviews, and over 500 traffic counts. We administer the direct attributable program. This slide identifies the projects that were awarded through the FY23 call. You can see 2 traffic signals in the city of Wilmington were awarded, the one at South 3rd and Ann, and also the one at 3rd and Orange. This slide demonstrates the 25 projects that are currently receiving MPO funds through that program and the geographic distribution of those projects. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Do we have any questions for Mike this evening? I don't see any. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mayor
it.
Pro Tem.
Real quick, Mayor President, I just want to, since I get to work with Mike on a regular basis, want to thank him and the staff of the MPO for all you do, not just for, on behalf of the city of Wilmington, but for our region as a whole. It's, he's a true force in this sector and well respected across the board. So it's a pleasure working with you. Learned a lot and continue to enjoy it. And thanks for this presentation.
Thank you, Councilman Waddell.
And if you would introduce Section 2, that would be great.
Sure. We have Vanessa Lacer, who's a senior transportation planner with the MPO here tonight, and she's going to overview Cape Fear Navigating Change 2050. So I'm going to bring Vanessa up
Great,
now.
thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. It's my pleasure to be here tonight to share some information about our planning effort, 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which we've titled Cape Fear Navigating Change 2050. So I'll just overview a little bit about the plan, give you some updates on what we've been doing, and then make sure that anyone watching or that's here tonight who's a citizen or even council members know how to get involved in this plan. So this is a federally required plan. Again, it is in that list of things that MPOs are required to do, all MPOs across the country. So we're required not only to create it, but also to update it every 5 years. So that's what we're doing now. We're working on an update. This plan is the blueprint for our region. It is the gold standard of transportation planning. It is a holistic plan, and it connects the entire region with transportation. The current plan that we are working under right now was adopted in 2020, and it's due for an update in 2025. This is a multi-year planning process, so we're getting started now so we can meet that deadline. There are some requirements for this plan. It must be multimodal. It must include 6 transportation modes. Those are aviation, bicycle and pedestrian, ferry and water transportation, rail, public transportation, and roadway. It must be fiscally constrained, and this is probably the most different to other planning efforts that we're doing in the community and others are doing. So the projects that are included in this plan are required to have funding associated with them. So our staff will be doing 99% of the planning in-house, but we will bring in a consultant to do this piece. They'll be looking at financial forecasting over a 25-year period, identifying state, federal, local money that may be available, and tying that to the projects that are selected. So again, these projects have money associated with them. These are projects that can be built versus a wish list. This plan must have a minimum 20-year planning horizon. We go a little above and beyond and do 25 years. It must adhere to our adopted public involvement policy. All of our public involvement policy complies with that. We've actually refreshed that policy earlier this year to keep it modern and current. And finally, it must be created using growth forecasts that are consistent with the latest local land use plans. This is another way in which this plan spans the region, is comprehensive, and makes sure that it takes advantage of the good planning that's already been done, and the projects that are included are appropriate for the areas where they're suggested. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about how this plan actually gets projects built, and it really does that in 2 ways. It has a direct impact on really every project coming into the area because, again, it is this blueprint for our region. It is a federally required gold standard transportation plan for our region. Every single planning effort coming into the region, whether it's federal or state, will be consulting this plan. So this plan will have an effect on the implementation of every transportation project in the region. The second way it impacts project development is through funding. So being included in this plan means that a project has been selected as a regional priority and that it has funding attached. Again, these are projects that can get built. Every single project in this plan is eligible to compete for state funding, and every single project in this plan is eligible to compete for the funding that the WMPO receives on an annual basis. So this year it was about $5 million. So the diagram on the right side of the screen shows kind of how this happens. At the top, the CTP stands for Comprehensive Transportation Plan. That is the wish list. That's every wonderful project that's needed in the region. In the middle there, you see the MTP. That's the Metropolitan Transportation Plan we're working on. That boils that wish list down to projects that can actually get built. And then at the very bottom, TIP stands for Transportation Improvement Program. That is the state money. So those projects are getting built, some of them with state money, but there's other funding available as well. There's federal money. And if you've ever worked with a grantor, you know that they want proof that this is a good project for the area. So being included in this plan brings these projects right to the top of the line. So we've talked a little bit about the plan and why it's important for our community. Here's what we've been doing. Staff have been working very hard behind the scenes since about August of last year. We're currently in our most public-facing stage. We're convening 2 different steering committees. CAC, Citizens Advisory Committee, MTPC stands for Metropolitan Transportation Plan technical steering committee. I'll get into that a little bit more. We're also in phase 1 of public outreach. So I'll talk a little bit more about why these are important and how this sets the stage for the planning to make sure that our community is involved from the beginning. Once we conclude this phase, we'll move into modal project development. Again, building our projects and our plan on what the community has told us they want and need. We'll also be doing that financial piece of the plan. Once we've finished that, we'll move into draft plan development. We'll have a draft plan ready in June of 2025 that we'll be releasing out to the public, asking for comments. Once we have all of those comments, we'll finalize the plan. In September and October of 25, we'll be presenting that final plan, and then in November of 2025, we'll be seeking plan adoption. So the 2 steering committees I mentioned, again, they're made up of people from our communities. The Citizens Advisory Committee, their role is to help staff create the most diverse and robust public engagement plan that we possibly can. These folks have been hand-selected by each of our board members because they have deep roots in their communities. So they have been with staff crafting the survey, outreach materials, the whole way, and they'll continue to do that throughout phase 1 and then phase 2 of public engagement. The second steering committee, the technical steering committee, this is really who's going to be working on the nuts and bolts of the plan. Again, these folks are from our community. They are subject matter experts in fields of aviation, for instance, and all of those other transportation modes. They're also comprised of our urban planning partners. So we have city folks as well that are on this committee. So we have Linda Painter. We also have Joe Conway on this committee. We have public health experts, emergency management representatives. So we're casting a wide net and thinking about who needs to be at the table when we're talking about this plan and who's going to be affected by transportation in our region. So here's a snapshot of our public outreach phase 1. We are using 2 data collection methods. We're using an online survey, which you can find at WMPO.org right now if you're moved to take the survey tonight. We're also doing stakeholder interviews and focus groups. We've done a great deal of promotion. We've held 6 public meetings. We're doing ongoing pop-up and outreach events. So you may see us at the next event you go to. We're doing media promotion with press releases, social media, of course. We've produced videos. We have a web page, which you can find at WMPO.org, email blasts. We also have some print promotion, handouts and posters. And again, city staff have been incredibly helpful in not only pushing out this information through social media, but also volunteering to participate on our committees and letting us put out these handouts and other things. A snapshot of public outreach phase 1 public meetings. We did have 106 attendees and 90 map comments. We had some large format maps where folks could pinpoint where there were trouble spots and make a comment. Again, a snapshot of the presentations and pop-up events that we have already participated in and that are upcoming. For instance, in the month of October, we're traveling around to all 10 jurisdictions and doing this presentation. And then next month, we'll be at Festival Latino. We've also saved a little space to identify other outreach events or presentations we need to do based on our survey data. So we're asking some demographic questions. Where do you live? How do you identify ethnically, et cetera, to understand who is missing in our data collection, and we're going to target those audiences. So here is our handout. Again, this is our ask. Please take the survey. This is our tool, our strongest tool to understand what the community wants and needs. So if you haven't taken it, please do. And I wanted to just give you a glimpse of what this looks like and show you how to translate the survey into Spanish. It's a one-click to do that. And that's what this survey looks like when it's translated into Spanish. We're asking questions like, how would you spend limited resources, right? You have a pot of money, these coins on the left, which you're going to drag and drop into these different compartments. So you can choose between things like bicycle and pedestrian facilities. Would you want money spent there? Would you like the money spent to improve or maintain roads? How about rail? How would you allocate these funds? We're asking about what folks would change about the current transportation network, their current travel behavior. What are they doing now? What do they want to do more of? Do they want to bike or walk more instead of whatever they're doing now? What obstacles prevent them from doing what they'd like to do? Are there crosswalks that are needed? Are there other obstacles, perhaps? We're asking about resiliency. How important is it to citizens that their transportation network can recover quickly from a weather event or flooding? And then finally, we're asking about future transportation like e-bikes and electric cars to gauge the interest there. We do have an interactive map as well, so this is great. You can drag and drop one of the pins at the top and exactly the location that you have a concern with. Maybe your street needs a sidewalk. Maybe there are maintenance issues on your street in your community. This is a great opportunity to show us exactly where that is and leave a comment what needs to be done there. And then finally, we ask them demographic information, and we have a link to our website and also our social media accounts. So again, we're asking, please take the survey. If you can, please help us promote the survey. We really want to hear from the City of Wilmington residents and visitors. What do you need in your transportation network? We're also having a contest. If folks like winning things, if you share on social media with our hashtag NavigatingChange2050, you can win a prize every month. Our October prize is 2 tickets for a boat ride on the Cape Fear River. Again, our website, WMPO.org, that is where all of this information lives, plus much more if you need more information or would like to see these items again. And I am filling in for Abby Lorenzo tonight, but you're welcome to reach out to her, any of us staff, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that citizens may have. And
Well, great. That is a great presentation. Are there any questions or comments? Mr. Spears?
Thank you for this presentation. It leaves me with a couple questions. So if you're looking at a 25-year plan, transportation plan, my first question is, so no one within the past 25 years had the ideal to bring rail back to Wilmington, to connect Wilmington to Raleigh or Wilmington to Charlotte? Especially as you talk about, you know, the citizens advisory committees and things of that nature. So nobody in the past 25 years just thought that they should have that idea then and we should be doing this now. And maybe we would have rail, we would be reconnected now.
Councilman Spears, the desire to bring rail back to Wilmington has been there since the 90s. There was actually a multimodal transportation study done back in 1999 that looked at a multimodal center. There was a feasibility study completed, and then in 2005, there was a site selection study that was completed by Lewis Berger, in which the site was actually selected for where the multimodal center was going to go. DOT purchased the properties along with help from the city in the late 2000s, and so the multimodal center is going to go, and part of it's already there, between 3rd, 4th, Hanover, and Red Cross. And so with Paget Station is there, we're renovating our office space at 525 North 4th Street, and then the properties on the north side of Campbell Street will house the future rail service. And so NCDOT has worked with Cape Fear Community College. They've worked out a memorandum of understanding in which the community college will build the building, DOT will donate the property. And so we've actively been communicating with Cape Fear Community College regarding that. As I mentioned in my presentation, President Biden signed the federal infrastructure bill in 2021, and with that there's a number of discretionary grants. And there's a significant amount of money in that program for rail. And so the thought and vision has always been there to bring passenger rail service back, but with the funding that's now available, we're really seeing the emphasis put behind that.
So basically you're saying we're right on track.
And also,
pun intended.
I need to point out that in 2005, there was actually a study done. It's called the Southeastern Passenger Rail Study. That evaluated 2 routes, one via Goldsboro and one via Fayetteville. They did not eliminate either of the routes, And NCDOT is currently refreshing that study now and do anticipate to have something released by the end of the year. So the vision has always been there, but the funding is now coming to the table to actually implement the vision. And so, we're not right on track. It's still going to be many years before it actually comes to realization, but there is an emphasis on trying to reestablish passenger rail service.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
And well, I guess I won't need my other question. We'll just
You
let
sure?
it ride. Thank you.
Mr. Barnett?
For my sake, is there anything you guys do with the bridge?
Is there anything we're
Yeah,
doing with the
I-
bridge? Yes,
yeah.
we are working collaboratively with the North Carolina Department of Transportation on identifying strategies for the replacement of the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge. We are working on a three-pronged approach right now. One is looking at the traditional delivery method, which is through the prioritization process. Another delivery method would be through tolls. The other delivery method would be through a public-private partnership. And then finally, we are actively looking at what other grant opportunities are out there. As I mentioned with the infrastructure bill, there's a number of discretionary grant funds available, different programs, and so we are actively looking and working collaboratively with the department to identify potential grant opportunities.
Okay.
Any other questions, concerns? Thank both of you very much. It was great. The survey sounds almost fun to take. So I hope I'm sure the staff will put it on, a link to it tonight on this council meeting, because it's a great explanation of what it is. So thank you very much. We appreciate all you do.
Thank you so much.
The next item of business is our consent agenda. Do the council members have any questions or want to pull either of the two items? Seeing none, what are the wishes of council? I have a motion by Mr. Waddell and a second by Mr. Barnett. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That passes unanimously. The next item of business is our public information. The first speaker is Mr. Brian Beach, and he will speak with us about infrastructure downtown investment. Mr. Beach, welcome. If you would state your full name and your address for the clerk for the record.
Sure, I'm Brian Beach. I live at 418 South 18th Street, Wilmington.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Haynes, fellow council members, Manager Cowdell, and city staff. Today, I stand before you to discuss some topics that have been on my mind, which I believe can help shape the future of Wilmington. The need for burying power lines within the 1945 city limits, the potential expansion of fiber internet access, and then I have a few questions pertaining to our financial support for our New Hanover County Schools. Our city has seen tremendous growth and beautification, especially with the development of our downtown business district and Riverwalk. However, to ensure that the entirety of Wilmington is viewed as beautiful and not just our immediate downtown, I propose the burying of our power lines throughout the 1945 city limits. This initiative will not only enhance our city's aesthetics, but also create a more resilient infrastructure, especially against windstorms. And I would really want to see this happening in less affluent areas. I'd like to add that haphazard tree cuttings appear to me to have been more prevalent in those areas. Additionally, this move will pave the way for improved pedestrian experiences and tree planting opportunities in downtown, aligning with the goals of our city's urban forest master plan. I propose all this knowing this project scope is an incredibly expensive endeavor. To fund this, I would hope that there's funding available from the federal FEMA hazard mitigation grants and U.S. Forest Service urban canopy grants. I believe there just needs to be will to find a way. Moving on to fiber access, as we consider these infrastructure improvements, it's crucial to recognize the growing need for reliable internet access and at higher speeds. With a rapidly growing remote workforce in Wilmington, the expansion of fiber internet is not just desirable, but essential. If we plan the burial of power lines with large enough conduits, this would greatly reduce the costs on internet service providers to bring this service to more than just lucky neighborhoods. I know that there's a new service provider called Lumos coming to certain parts of the city, and it would be great to see them compete with AT&T downtown, who is the only other residential fiber provider that I'm aware of. Lastly, I'd like to quickly touch on our financial contributions to New Hanover County Schools. Having attended some council meetings this year, it's come up that council members have appeared surprised to me to see revenues from Safe Light and fines from tree removals being directed towards our schools. All I'd like to ask is that a thorough review be done to understand the extent of our annual contributions to the county, and I'd love to see if the city would explore working with the county to understand where those funds are being allocated. I think a lot of people would love to see those funds go towards teacher pay or improved facilities at New Hanover High School, which the county is still currently being investigated for racially discriminatory facilities. In closing, I urge the City Council to consider these proposals as strategic investments in Wilmington's bright future. These are ambitious proposals, to say the least, but I believe together we can build a city that is not only beautiful but ready to support its future growth. If there's interest in these initiatives, please let me know what I can do to support. I'd love to help. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Our next speaker is Dan Spillman. Mr. Spillman will speak with us about the Land Development Code, Section 18-316, tree preservation and large retail gas station. Welcome, Mr. Spillman. If you also would tell your full name and your address for the clerk.
Thank you. It's Dan Spillman, S-P-I-L-M-A-N, 1102 North 8th Street. We had a development that went in behind our corner, which didn't really affect me directly. It bordered multiple neighbors of mine, and I looked at this beautiful tree preservation law that the city passed not too many years back. I think it was in 2021, and started contacting the planning because it appeared that the one tree that was permitted to come down had been exceeded quite quickly, and they did go out multiple trips and determined that there were at least 5 extra trees taken down that were not permitted to come down, which I'm sure is a regular situation in the development world. But when it was all said and done, even though I have multiple emails over about a year period talking about how they will not get a final permit until they replant the trees according to the law, there was probably 2 trees planted along the street side, but no significant trees were replanted. All 5 multi-unit buildings have been sold, and there's nothing to be had. So unfortunately, the planning is great, but it's got to be implemented. And the law you have is a tremendous law, and it's very detailed, but if it's not going to be followed, it's useless. And it was kind of funny because the last correspondence, when I didn't get a response after it had been, all the buildings had been sold and obviously nothing had been done, the same week in the Star News was a big article about the lack of tree canopy in downtown Wilmington and how it's becoming a problem. And it was kind of ironic that we were going through this situation on a development that they could have been held to account quite easily. The second thing I wanted to mention, I was at a Wawa presentation last week. They're looking at a new facility over on Oleander near the Tidal Creek, on the intersection where Tidal Creek Co-op is. And they're looking at getting a variance to take a couple of houses and pull it into their property so it's big enough to go with what they normally do, which is gas stations with 20-some pumps on it. And this also goes into long-term planning. I mean, the city has done a great job in making this a community that people want to come and visit and people want to move to. Gas, obviously, is going to be not something that's going to be needed as much of in the future if we're going to let these behemoths come in. I don't have a problem with Wawa. They're a great company. They seem to do the right thing. But do we need more gas stations? And do we need a situation where a company like Wawa, who is looking at putting a facility in where there are 3 other gas stations within about 0.6 of a mile, you know, those gas stations will probably go down in the 5-10 years down the road because they won't be able to compete, and the city will have more facilities on their hands where they have to excavate gas tanks, where they're properties that are hard to sell. So I would hope that the city is looking long-term at something like these large gas stations coming in and whether it's really needed, whether there should be a consideration for a moratorium on new gas. The stats on electric cars, they doubled the last quarter. They were up to about 8% of the sales nationally. So it's coming. It's going to happen, and we got to think about whether we want to have a lot of gas stations that are going to be eyesore properties that are not going to be able to be dealt with, or no developer will want to buy because the cost to clean them up will be too much. So thank you.
Great, thank you. The next item of business are our ordinances. Item O1 is an ordinance making supplemental appropriation to the Public Improvement Fund JAG Equipment 2023 Wilmington, New Hanover County grant in the amount of $66,867, and to the Special Purpose Fund utilizing $2,583 in North Carolina drug tax revenue for the purchase of a portable X-ray system. And at this time, I'll recognize our city manager, Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Good evening to you and the rest of members of council. Police Chief Donnie Williams will overview this item for us.
Welcome, Chief.
Good evening again. We're requesting passage of Ordinance 01. This will allow for $66,867 in no-match 2023 JAG grant funds and $2,583 in NC drug tax funds to be utilized for the purchase of a portable X-ray machine. This X-ray system will be used by our bomb squad. This new system will replace our current system that was purchased around 2008. Are there any questions?
We have any questions for Chief Williams? I do not see any. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. What are the wishes of council? If there's no discussion, we have a motion by Mr. Rivenbark and a second by Mr. Barnett. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. That passes unanimously. Item O2 is an ordinance making supplemental appropriation.
Second
Oh, I'm
reading,
sorry.
Madam.
I need to ask about the second reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? I have a motion by Mr. Waddell and a second by Mr. Barnett. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. That passes unanimously. Now, on to O2, which is an ordinance making supplemental appropriation to the Public Improvement Fund JAG Equipment New Hanover County 2022 grant in the amount of $41,479, and to the Special Purpose Fund utilizing $5,416 in North Carolina Drug Tax Revenue Fund for Mobile Command Center upgrades. And once again, I'll recognize our city manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Chief Williams will overview this item as well.
We're requesting passage of Ordinance 02. This will allow for $41,479 in no-match 2022 JAG grant funds and $5,416 in NC drug tax funds to be utilized for the factory upgrades to our mobile command post vehicle. These upgrades will include our HVAC systems, electronics, and other systems on the truck. The mobile command post is used multiple times each year for larger scale incidents and critical events. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Chief Williams? Seeing none, what are the wishes of council? We have a motion by Mr. Spears and a second by Mr. Barnett. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. That passes unanimously. Is there a motion to waive second reading? I have a motion by Mr. Waddell, a second by Mr. Barnett. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That also passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next item is O3A and O3B. I will read both of them and then we'll vote on them individually. O3A is the ordinance making appropriation of $1,150,069 to the Parks and Recreation Capital Projects Fund for the MLK Community Center gym expansion. And O3B is the resolution authorizing award of a construction contract to Clancy and Thays Construction Company for the MLK Community Center gym expansion and the kitchen renovation in the amount of $4,525,500. Mr. Caudle?
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Matt Hart, Senior Project Manager, will overview both of these items for us.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I'm here tonight for your consideration of an ordinance and a related resolution authorizing the award of the construction contract for the MLK Community Center gym expansion and gym renovation or kitchen renovation to Clancy and Thays Construction Company, the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, in the amount of $4,525,500. This project includes the addition of a commercial kitchen, a lobby, new restrooms, office space, high school regulation size gymnasium, and the preferred alternates, which we included in the bid package for standardization. The commercial kitchen construction and a portion of the gymnasium expansion is funded by the American Rescue Act funds. In order to award this contract, the ordinance making a supplemental appropriation to the Park and Recreational Capitals Fund for the MLK Community Center gym expansions is necessary in the amount of $1,150,096. This amount includes additional funding needed for the construction contract award, 5% of the construction contingency, construction administration services, and special inspection services, as well as the construction material testing. This passage that is attached is recommended. Any questions?
Do we have any questions? And so
Thank you so
that's going to,
much.
you're covering A and B.
That is correct, ma'am.
Good. I just wanted to make sure before we vote. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
What are the wishes of council? I have a motion by Mr. Spears and a second by Mr. Barnett on the ordinance. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. That passes unanimously. Is there a motion to waive second reading? I have a motion by Mr. Rivenbark and a second by Mr. Spears. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. That passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next are our resolutions. Oh, no.
We need, yeah, 03B. Yes.
I'm sorry, I need to do 03B. So what are the wishes of council on 03B? I have a motion by Mr. Rivenbark, a second by Mr. Spears. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. That passes unanimously.
Second reading.
No, it's a resolution.
Okay.
So now on to resolutions. Item R1 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for a fiscal year '24 Environmental Protection Agency community-wide brownfield assessment grant in the amount of $500,000. At this time, I'll recognize our city manager, Mr. Tony Caudle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Aubrey Parsley, our Assistant to the City Manager for Economic Development, will overview this item.
Evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. I have a short presentation for you tonight on this topic. So first, I thought we'd start with a historical review of the city's involvement with this EPA grant specifically. The city did successfully apply for a Brownsfield community-wide assessment grant in 2011 and was awarded $400,000. Back then, that was the amount that was awarded for this grant. Now the amount is up to $500,000. A lot of work got funded through that grant award last cycle: 16 phase 1 environmental assessments, 6 phase 2s, 2 underground petroleum storage tank closure reports. You see the rest of the list on the slide here. It was a very productive grant for the city, and a lot of projects got done or were aided along as a result of this grant award in 2011. At that time, the 2011 grant award focused on the areas you see shaded here on the maps. There were 2 focus areas, one on the north end of downtown and another on the south side of our city. And the rest of the shaded area there was included in the scope of projects and items that were eligible for the grant award use at the time. The FY24 application request is, again, to apply for $500,000. There is no match required, so there is no funding being requested of council tonight. The roughly $8,000 cost of procuring grant writing services to apply for this grant will be funded out of the Economic Development Initiatives Fund, which is already a part of the budget. A stat certainly worth noting is around 50 to 55% of all the applicants that submit for this community-wide assessment grant are awarded this $500,000. So $8,000 to have a roughly 50% chance of being awarded $500,000 is a pretty significant potential ROI there. Should the city be awarded those funds, it would have 4 years to spend them down, and we would know by the spring of 2024 whether or not the city were to be awarded those funds, which syncs up relatively well with our budget process. So there could be some discussion in the budget process for more specifically how this funding could be allocated. The thought is to have the application focus on the continued revitalization of the north end of our downtown. We also put a focus on the north side multi-parcel redevelopment area, the old operations center near Fanning Street. We put an emphasis on community outreach and planning efforts, new planning efforts, as well as complementing the planning efforts we already have underway, such as our greater downtown plan, and then complementing other projects in process. Again, we cast a wide net and wide scope in the application to be able to have the flexibility to fund projects along the way. Again, timing would allow council to have input during our budget process, and there could be discussion should the city be awarded as to how that money gets allocated across projects and across uses. So last slide here, I just have a list of, and I won't go through these one by one, but I do have a list of the eligible uses of the funds. I would just point out that there is a lot of flexibility in terms of how these funds get expended on brownfield sites. It's basically everything that stops short of physical cleanup. So there is a high degree of confidence that I have that the city would make use of this entire grant award should it be awarded to the city, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Parsley? Thank you very much. And what are the wishes of council? We have a motion by Mr. Robinbark and a second by Mr. Barnett. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. That passes unanimously. Item R2 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute a security services contract for armed and unarmed guards with Allied Universal Compliance and Investigations, Inc., and to ratify the extension of the security services contract with Safety and Security Services Incorporated to transition services to the new vendor. And at this time, I will recognize our city manager, Mr. Tony Caudle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Thomas Moten, our Deputy City Manager, will overview this item for us.
Good evening, Madam Pro Tem and members of council. Attached for your consideration today, or presented for your consideration, is a resolution authorizing the award of a services security contract for armed and unarmed officers. This process of using security services started in late 2022 after a series of events triggered the need to re-examine the conditions around downtown in our buildings, as well as the safety and security of patrons and employees. Briefly, I'll just give you a highlight of the request for proposal and then recommendation from staff. We'll review the existing services we provide, the RFP process, the locations, the proposal, recommendation, the term of the contract, and also one final action, which is to ratify the extension of the current contract. So we have currently two threads of security services, one of which is provided by number one. It's days and nights. It includes City Hall, Thalian Hall, 305 Chestnut, the Harrelson Building, parking decks, and some other city facilities during the daytime, 5 days a week. Overnight, it's 7 days a week, armed and unarmed. And then a separate contract, which is 929 North Front Street, is Sun States Security, which is strictly unarmed security in and around that facility. We reached out to 11 vendors that we identified in the North Carolina area serving within our region. They're listed above just for your reference, including soliciting a direct contact to the current incumbent, which was Safety and Security Services. We provided in our request for proposals the locations, the times in which we needed coverage, as well as an area map to help inform the respondents of what the expectations were. The proposals were evaluated on a 100-point scale using the above criteria. I would note that the proposal quality really related to the completeness and thoroughness of the proposal. When we looked at training program and women, MWBE, that would be Minority Women Business Enterprises, whether or not there was some element to it. But more specifically, with the training program for the security officers, as well as the customer service components, to ensure that the vendor had an orientation towards ensuring that interaction with the public met our expectations. Evaluation Committee had a cross-section of employees that represented not only City Hall, the Harrelson Building, Chestnut, as well as Human Resources. The proposals, we received 7. They're there for you. It was a clear, unanimous decision and recommendation at Allied Universal, which if you look in the blue column, 94.2 was their rating out of a 100-point scale. The next closest is in sort of the tan brown at 80.3, and then the last being on your right side, sort of an amber color, that is Safety Security Services at 78.8. From our perspective, clearly Allied Universal distinguished themselves in terms of the expectation and presentation of the proposal to meet our expectations. In terms of cost, at this point in time, we're nearly about, with a balance of about 32 weeks left to have a contract. We annualized all the contracts to ensure that we had an annual perspective of what that cost would be. You can see that Allied Universal, which is on your left side, their annualized contract cost based on the hours proposed was $501,000 plus. If you compare that to the lowest submitted proposal, which would be on your right, which is Safety Security Services, $482,000. The difference between those two was 3.9%. However, you know, the conditions in which we wanted to evaluate the proposals was based on the quality of the content as well as the methods and approach. Cost was not the primary concern, it was a concern. Recommendations from staff and the manager would be to recommend awarding the contract to Allied Universal. The contract costs represented includes armed and unarmed for approximate cost of $9,600 per week for 32 weeks in FY 23-24. That figure is based on 301 staffing hours per week. The projected cost for this fiscal year would be $308,000 plus. The allocation of the cost is approximately 55% to the general fund and 45% to the parking fund, primarily overnight services. The FY cost allocation is presented there for you. We recommend that you authorize the city manager to execute a contract for armed and unarmed security services with initial term through June 2024. It's important to note that any renewal of the contract would be upon mutual agreement as well as reflecting what our current and future needs may be. One additional item for your consideration is that we ask that you ratify the city manager's extension of the current Safety Security Services contract so that the transition from the current vendor to the new vendor can occur as smoothly as possible. At this time, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Moten? Yes, Mr. Waddell.
Assuming those one-year renewals, they would come before council.
What you'd be authorizing today, right now what's presented is to authorize the city manager to make that determination, and if you authorize the manager to make it, he'll make that determination, execute the contract. If it's the desire of council to at least be advised that the intention is to renew it, we'll be happy to do that as well.
So
and I don't want to speak for the manager, but I think you would be amenable to that.
And then following up on that, once we fully transition into 929 North Front Street and all departments are over there and we've vacated this, do we anticipate a significant reduction in the terms of this contract, especially with regards to armed?
We anticipate a change in what our needs will be. We've adjusted this contract over the 10 months because of it ebbs and flows. But I do expect that there will be some savings or a different approach. There'll still be overnight services that we continue to need, and then there'll be some needs for daytime service as well.
But anticipate some reduction?
I think there's going to be a change. And yes, sir, I think it would be fair to say some reduction. There may be other needs in other areas of the city that we may need to consider as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Rivenbark.
The company that does our security in this building right now, that's
Safety and Security Services.
Right. Did we do the same RFP when they were hired?
No, sir. I apologize, I glossed over this. We did an emergency contract originally with Safety Security Services based on some exigent circumstances, and we did not have an opportunity to put together a very thorough proposal that established what our expectations are.
To piggyback on what Councilman Waddell was just talking about, let me ask his question a different way. when these buildings become vacant, and I think he brought that up, you said there would still be some needs for some daytime, whatever. What kind of, if 305 Chestnut is empty?
Yes, sir.
And this building is empty except for Thalian, what responsibilities would we continue to have here and say across the street?
Well, a couple of things, and this is just off the top of my head, but one of the things I would not want to do when we've been maintaining an environment around those buildings during the daytime that controls nuisance activity and vandalism, and until they're sold, you still want to have some presence around those buildings. Otherwise, if they're unoccupied, sitting there by themselves, they're sort of defending their own. So, yeah, need I say more about that?
I think that's enough.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions or concerns? Thank you, Mr. Moten. What are the wishes of council? I have a motion by Mr. Barnett and a second by Mr. Rivenbark. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. That passes unanimously. Next is item R3, which is a resolution authorizing the disposal of real property through the upset bid process for 302 Willard Street. And at this time, I recognize our city manager, Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Parsley will overview this item for us as well.
Evening again. Thank you for the introduction. This, as has already been stated, is authorizing the upset bid process be initiated and an offer be accepted to initiate that upset bid process for 302 Willard Street. First, I'll begin with just some property characteristics. This is technically an office building that sits on 0.23 acres of land. The building is 4,200 square feet, comprised of 2 floors. It is an older building, 83 years, that was originally used as a fire station. Last renovation was completed in 2019 with some interior upfits, but the building class is Class C. Zoning's UMX, and it does technically preside in Zone X, unshaded flood zone. There are no state or local restrictions regarding historic covenants. So as I just mentioned, the property was originally used as a fire station. It is now operated by a division of our Parks and Rec Department as offices. Council did vote to surplus this property in February of this year, contingent upon the successful acquisition of 929 North Front Street. That sale closed on July 13th of this year, so that property became surplus at that time. And staff did receive a bid here recently, which initiated this item before you tonight. Just first wanted to show just 2 maps, 2 aerials of where the property is. It is just on the north side of Greenfield Lake. As you can see here on the maps, the parcel there on the right is outlined in red, and it technically does sit on what is a double lot. A few pictures of the property. First, a front view and a side view there. If I'm clicking through these too quickly, please just let me know. A few pictures of the interior are up next. It's a conference room on the left, hallway on the right. The building shows its age a little bit. For the most part, it's in good condition. It is an operational building, so it is various rooms are used currently as storage for operations. I did think it would be worth going through, since this is a relatively new process to council and the public. I did want to go through what the upset bid process looks like. So if you'll bear with me, I'll try to walk through the process here. So after a bid is received and put up for a council vote as it's being requested to do so tonight, to accept the initial bid and initiate the upset bid process. Should council desire to initiate that upset bid process and accept the bid, staff would then go and publish a legal notice in the newspaper announcing the initiation of the upset bid process. More will be done to communicate that outreach than just a newspaper publication. We'll have information on our website and other means of communications as well. Once that notice is published, folks will have 10 days to submit an upset bid, which must be delivered to the office of the clerk. And that process would continue as necessary until upset bids are no longer received. So really, after that notice is published and 10 days pass and those bids are due, should another bid, qualifying eligible bid be received that upsets the current bid, then that would reinitiate the need for the public notice, and we'd start that process again and repeat it until there no longer are any upset bids submitted. I like to describe it as a slow motion live auction is effectively what this is. So assuming that council were to approve this tonight and no bids were received after the 10 days of the notice being published in the newspaper, a subsequent council vote would not be required. The property would be under contract with the bid accepted tonight, and there'd be 30 days to move to closing. If an upset bid is received during or in that 10-day window from publishing that legal notice, then another vote would come before council to accept that bid once that process stopped and no additional upset bids were received. So that is a high-level overview of that process, and I will put some real dates to that here now. As you can see, there are really two tracks to how this process plays out, and the split happens once the bids are due. So for this bid process here, if council were to approve it tonight and vote in the affirmative, the city manager would sign the bid and staff would order the legal notice as I previously stated. The legal notice would be printed. On Monday is when we'd schedule to have that notice printed in the newspaper, and we would receive upset bids through November 2nd at 3 p.m. Assuming none were received, that would be the end of the process, and we would move to closing, and the deadline for closing for this transaction would be November 17th. But again, if an upset bid were received, we can't predict the timeline. We would have subsequent bid process, publications of notices, bids received, and that process would continue until we no longer received bids. So the bid we received was for $715,000. A 5% deposit is required to submit an eligible bid. This individual did submit full payment with the bid he submitted to the city. The bidder's name is Mark Maynard Sr. The conditions of the sale are as is, where is. It will be a quick claim deed conveyance. There is no due diligence period, as some have come to know through perhaps purchasing a home or other property. 30 days will be the deadline to close after the city countersigns the bid. And I did want to point out that the council may reject the current bid or subsequent bids if tonight's bid is accepted. So just a little bit more on the technicalities and process, again, for the benefit of the public. So to submit an eligible bid, you will need to use the city's upset bid form specific to this property, which can be found in two places. One is at 929 North Front Street. There are forms waiting in the lobby. Just speak to the receptionist and they'll provide you a form. The other place to find the bid form is at wilmingtonnc.gov/bids. In order to submit an eligible bid, the statute requires that the bid be raised by not less than 10% of the first 1,000 and 5% of the remainder. And since I was never very good at those word problems in math, I did want to put an example up here on the slide of what that math looks like. As you can see, in essence, it's basically you have to raise the bid by at least 5%. The first 10% of the first $1,000 and ends up being $100 that you add to then the 5% of the remainder, which in this case is $714,000. A money order or certified check for the 5% deposit must be submitted along with the bid, and again, that bid and deposit must be presented in a sealed envelope to the office of the city clerk before the deadline, which is spelled out in the public notice and which I've highlighted here on the slide tonight. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Yes, we have some. Mr. Rivenbark?
Aubrey, very good layout. A couple of questions. We all know about it, and you'd think that everybody in the countryside would know about this, but how are we getting this word out that these surplus properties are, I'm sure people like Mark Maynard, they're in the business, they're going to make it their business to know, but is there a mechanism by which we're using to get this out?
Not a traditional mechanism that the private sector is used to. There are no MLS listings or anything of that nature. Really what we do is activate our network with the community, both on the professional side with brokers in the different spaces that would be, commercial or residential depending on the property. We try to engage as many real estate professionals as we can to let folks know that these properties are for sale in this process, and we're looking to go through one of these two processes, upset bids or sealed bids, We also look for logical buyers for properties. We talk to neighbors. We talk to, depending on what type of building it is, we'll seek out folks directly to solicit interest in properties. So those are the two primary methods outside of presenting to council and trying to get a media cycle to report on it.
Second question, why are we only able to offer a quitclaim deed?
City Attorney, would you prefer to take that one?
A quitclaim deed is what we want. It's not what they're offering. It's what the
And
city
they're
wants.
okay with a quitclaim deed?
Yes, sir. Their first one indicated a non-warranty deed, but we indicated to them that we prefer a quitclaim deed, and my understanding is they have agreed to that.
They submitted their offer with a quitclaim deed as the conveyance method for the deed. So they are aware of it.
That's good. Thank you.
Quick question.
Mr. Barnett, you have a question?
Just to follow up. So the quick claim deed is what? Explain that to me.
I'll do my best, and then Meredith, please jump in. It's you're basically saying, I don't know exactly what I have, but what I have is yours.
As is. I'm buying it as is, kind of like. Is that it?
I'm sorry?
I'm buying it as is, or I'm giving it to you as is.
Right. I'm sure there's a much more technical definition.
That's pretty much it. It's as is, where is, with no conditions or claims on title or anything like that. They have to do their own title work and whatever they want to do. We're not doing any of that for them.
Okay.
Well, excuse me, I hate to get ahead. Will that be the case in all of our properties? What we're wanting?
That's what we asked for all of them, and that's what's on the form.
For these tonight, there will be some circumstances, I think, where we would, I think our default would be quitclaim deed, but for instance, the sealed bid sale for 115 North 3rd Street and 210 Chestnut Street, the building across the street, does contemplate a warranty deed.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions for
And
Mr. Parsley?
We have gotten the value of what the properties are. I mean,
We did obtain an appraisal for internal planning purposes, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Spears?
I'm sorry. No, I was moving to.
Well, Mr. Spears wants to ask a question.
No, Councilman Barnett asked my question.
Oh, okay. All right, great. Thank you, Mr. Parsley. We really appreciate it. That was a good presentation. We have a motion by Mr. Barnett and a second by Mr. Rivenbark. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes unanimously. Item R4 is a resolution authorizing the disposal of real property through the upset bid process for 222 and 226 South Front Street. And again, I'll recognize Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Parsley will review this item as well.
Thank you. I'll jump right into this one. It's another upset bid offer, this time for two parcels, 222 and 226 South Front Street. The presentation will have the same format. I'll go through the upset bid process slides a little quicker this time, but the property characteristics on this one are there's a 3-story historic structure and a vacant lot contemplated in this set of property. Combined, the land is 0.16 acres. The gross building area is just shy of 4,300 square feet, and there is an unfinished basement crawl space that's almost 2,200 square feet. The age of the building is not exactly known, but it's believed to be circa 1900. The last renovation here I put as not applicable because the previous owner was mid-renovation and never completed the structures effectively in a shell condition. The building class is Class D. The zoning is Central Business District with a historic district overlay. Flood Zone X and historic regs do apply to this property. Given it the historic district overlay, the Historic Preservation Commission would have oversight, and certificates of appropriateness would need to be contemplated for things, exterior improvements and things of that nature. A little history on the property. Again, the National Register report estimates construction circa 1900. It's believed the house was actually moved to the site, perhaps on the old foundation from the property, or excuse me, the structure prior in 1915. The city took ownership of these properties resulting from a legal settlement, which resolved a number of disputes and claims. So this was not a pure real estate transactions. There were a lot of puts and takes considered as part of that settlement, and the city's ownership of these parcels was part of the result of that settlement. The city did take possession of the property in March 2023, and we got busy very quickly performing a number of different activities, which I did want to quickly overview with you all. The sidewalk had been taken out on the, would that be south side of the property? So you can see a shot here looking at it from the side where the sidewalk's been removed, and then our streets and sidewalk folks came in and through a contractor reinstalled that sidewalk there. Also, the exterior had quite a bit of debris built up, and there was a bit of soil and fill that was on the property, a couple mounds that we went to work on, and you can see the result here on the right. Spent some money to get that cleaned up, and since that picture was taken, have put some seed on the property to get the grass to grow back again. Interior needed a little bit of help as well. We did hire contractors to clean that out, so you see the before and after shots here of that. Property location, again, 2 maps. This property's in the toward the south end of the central business district. The 2 parcels are highlighted there in red on the right. This is a front view and side view of the property. Couple shots of the interior. You can see there from the picture on the left and from a few subsequent pictures here that some renovation work had begun but had not gone to a state of being near completion. Some rooms are certainly better than others. There are places where only subfloor exists, and there's a few spots missing there even on the first level of the home. So this is again in a shell condition, and the entity rather that submitted the bid here is aware of its condition. This is a picture of the attic. You can see some temporary structural support there as well as some insulation coming loose from the attic. This is a few pictures of the basement. There's obviously some electrical work to be done to the property, and the previous owner had begun some structural work as well that the individual, or excuse me, the entity that submitted is aware of as well. But just wanted to highlight a few of the pictures to give a general idea of what state the property's in. We've been through this slide, so I won't spend much time on it. Again, the process is exactly the same as I described for 302 Willard Street. Council will vote tonight to accept the bid received, and if accepted, would initiate the upset bid process. If no bids are received, no subsequent council vote is required. We'd go under contract and move to close. If a bid is received, we would come back for a council vote at a later date. So this is again the timeline. It mirrors the timeline for that just presented for 302 Willard Street, with the exception, it does mirror the timeline. The bid amount received was for $600,000. That bid is eligible, came in with its 5% deposit. The bidder is Urban Building Corp. LLC. Again, this is an as-is, where-is sale via quick claim deed. 90 days for closing after the city day, as the city countersigns. Again, council may reject this current bid here tonight via the vote of the item in front of you, or reject subsequent bids if in the future if tonight's bid is accepted. Again, the form can be found in the same 2 places. You can go online, wilmingtonnc.gov/bids, and find the form specific to 222 and 226 South Front Street on the website. It'll be an individual link on this website that you'll need to click into to get to that form. And again, you can just come to 929 North Front Street and obtain a form through the receptionist at the lobby. The math is the same, or the formula is the same, but for $600,000, the minimum upset bid required for this property is $630,050. A money order or certified check for 5% needs to be submitted as a deposit to have the bid be eligible. And again, that bid does need to be delivered to the office of the clerk before the deadline to be considered eligible.
Great, thank you. I believe we have a question from Mr. Robinbaum.
Just one question, Aubrey. Are these, the bid on the last one and the bid on this one, are they the only 2 bids that we received? Did we receive some that were just lower?
No, sir, to my knowledge, we did not receive any formal bids on either of these two properties.
Except for the two that
Except for these two that are presented tonight.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I stand corrected. I think Mr. McEwen, is that correct? Oh, sorry, I thought I saw a head shake there. Excuse me.
Okay, any other questions or concerns? Thank you, Aubrey, we appreciate it. I have a motion by Mr. Waddell and a second by Mr. Barnett. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. That passes unanimously. Next is item R5. That's a resolution providing approval of a multifamily housing facility to be known as Tidewater Townhomes in the city of Wilmington, North Carolina, and the financing thereof with multifamily housing revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $16 million. And at this time, I'll recognize our city manager, Mr. Caudle.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Jennifer Moretti, our Finance Director, will overview this item for us.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. The resolution before you is requesting your approval as it relates to the financing of a multifamily housing facility, Tidewater Townhomes, with multifamily housing revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $16 million. The bonds being issued are not by the City of Wilmington, but are the bonds of the Wilmington Housing Authority. This item is before City Council for approval only to satisfy the requirements of Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code, as the location of the housing facility is within the city's jurisdiction. The city will not have any liability for payment of these bonds, nor will the bonds be considered debt of any kind to the city. James Twitty with McGuire Woods is here as bond counsel representing the Wilmington Housing Authority and will provide additional information on this process and answer any questions you may have on it. Mr. Twitty?
Thank you. Good evening. These bonds are intended to finance an existing affordable housing project.
Could you speak into the mic?
Sorry. These bonds are intended to finance an existing affordable housing project that already exists within the city. As Jennifer mentioned, these bonds do not represent a debt of the city. And the purpose of this approval is only to satisfy the requirements of the tax code, which require this approval, as well as a public hearing, which in this case was conducted by the Housing Authority of Wilmington, which is issuing the bonds. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Do we have any questions? Seeing none, thank you, sir. And what are the wishes of council? I have a motion by Mr. Barnett, a second by Mr. Rivenbark. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. That also passes unanimously. Next is item R6A, R6B, and R6C. Shall I read them all and vote on them at one time?
Probably would be best, yes, ma'am.
Okay. R6A is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Collective Impact in New Hanover County to support digital job skills training and employment initiatives utilizing $300,000 of American Rescue Plan Act funding. Then R6B is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Phoenix Employment Services of Wilmington, Inc., to advance digital job skills training and employment initiatives utilizing $500,000 of American Rescue Plan Act funding. And then R6C is the resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Stigler EdTech LLC to advance digital job skills training and employment initiatives utilizing $1,517,250 of American Rescue Plan Act funding. And I'll recognize Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Jared Patterson, our Corporate Affairs Director, will try to walk you through this rather convoluted explanation and solution that he's been very creative in finding. So,
Thank you, Mr. Cottle. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, good evening. What I have for you is a quick overview here. This is the continuation of some ARPA-funded efforts to bridge the digital divide. The city led a collaborative conversation with a number of local nonprofits, employers, stakeholders. I remember sitting across the table from Councilman Spears back when this conversation got started. And this past year, City Council awarded $2.5 million from ARPA for digital job skills training and workforce development. That was an umbrella performance contract that was executed in December of 2022. We had two local nonprofits that were going to be serving as primary agents of service delivery underneath an umbrella contract that was managed by a third. That third service provider has stepped away from the project due to some unforeseen complications. And so what we did was we issued an RFP so that we could continue the initiative. We're now ready to recommend 3 service providers that we believe are best positioned for success and would recommend that we contract directly with each organization instead of an umbrella contract. The big picture here, what we're looking at is upskilling and reskilling workers to participate in the local digital economy. Our goal is to help put local talent into local jobs with an emphasis on historically underserved and underrepresented populations into tech careers. Aligning classrooms to career pathways so that we result in actual jobs at the end of this, and then maintaining continuity with efforts that were previously funded by council. We have 3 major components to this. The first is what you might call a hard skills training. These are job-specific training for careers that require digital skills. Another component that's important to this is what we would refer to as soft skills training. These are kind of your workplace and life skills training that help people have a successful career. And then finally, the data backbone of this, data collection, mapping those current and future workforce needs to make sure that we're doing a good job aligning what students are learning with the actual jobs that they can go into, and performance tracking to make sure that we're doing a good job at it. So you've got 3 resolutions, and I'll walk you through those real quick. The first one, R6A, is what we would call the data backbone. That is with Cape Fear Collective. That is a Wilmington-based nonprofit. They would be providing data strategy, impact measurement, and talent pipeline management. What talent pipeline management is aligning the job training with the workforce needs and the career opportunities that exist in the community. Cape Fear Collective began providing talent pipeline management under the original initiative. You may also know them locally for their Cape Fear Talent Survey and the Cape Fear Inclusive Economy Report, which they have produced. This contract is for $300,000. It would move through 2025, and it's a performance contract where we would be issuing payment as milestones are met. CFO Megan Dennison is also with us here this evening. R6B is what we would refer to as the soft skills training component of this. Step Up Wilmington is the local nonprofit that would be receiving that. They would be providing employment and life skills training, employment services, participant recruitment, and support and case management. Step Up Wilmington does have a long track record in this community. They're celebrating their 20th anniversary. They were one of the original collaborators on this work, and they do have a deep network for recruiting diverse participants into the initiative. We would allocate for them up to $500,000 through 2025. And again, the payment and reimbursements would be for staffing support and program resources, and city staff would be also working to make sure that we're reviewing for performance and also for eligibility for those expenses. And then our final R6C would be what we would refer to as the hard skills training aspect of this. This we are recommending Stiegler EdTech. They are based in Charlotte. They are a mission-driven organization that would be providing digital education, job skills training, job pairing, and employment services. What they are proposing is to run 24-week in-person cohorts that would eventuate in an apprenticeship with a local employer, and that apprenticeship would transition into full-time regular employment. They have presented to us a unique job pairing approach. that has a 100% placement rate for participants who complete the training program. This would be for $1.5 million through 2025. And again, the payment and reimbursements for staffing, support, and program resources would be provided based on performance and a review of eligibility of all expenses submitted. One of the founding partners, Pasha Mayer, is with us this evening. Moving forward, what we envision here is if council approves of these items, we would develop performance-based agreements and have those in place lickety-split. We would begin advertising, or the program managers would begin advertising and recruiting immediately for this. The first cohort would enroll in early 2024. The talent pipeline management work has begun already from the original iteration of this, and it would continue immediately. We are in receipt of letters of thanks and endorsement and pledge participation from several local employers that are pleased with what is taking place here and the city's work with this. The city would be providing regular compliance and performance reviews, and we are encouraged by a path to future sustainability due to the number of local employers that are involved in this initiative. And that's all.
Are there any questions? Yes, Mr. Barnett?
Yeah, I'm familiar with like Step Up. The second group, the group out of Charlotte, okay, you mentioned they're going to do like a 24-week.
24-week, in-person, full-time job training.
Okay.
That they would be running. And those who complete that would then be paired into an apprenticeship with a local employer, and that apprenticeship would then transition into full-time regular employment.
Do they have an idea how many candidates they'll have? Does that depend on who shows up or ballpark?
Yes and no. There's also work to bring in other funds that would be able to help take the dollars that we provide and stretch them even farther to be able to amplify that effort. So the hope is that while we're providing seed money for some initial cohorts, that the involvement from local employers and other funding sources would actually take it and amplify it so that we may see, you know, this being an ongoing effort that would be provided in the community.
And they were not a part of the original?
They were not. We had three originally.
Right.
One has stepped away, and Stiegler is coming in to fill that spot.
Okay. And they were highly recommended?
Sir?
And they were highly recommended?
We had an RFP process, and we believe that their proposal shows a strong track record of the work that they've been doing and a good prospect for future success for us.
Okay, I'm good for it. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. It's a good presentation. So we will take these one at a time. Right now, we're going to vote on R6A. I have a motion by Mr. Spears and a second by Mr. Barnett. All in favor of that signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes unanimously. Now, we will do R6B. I have a motion by Mr. Spears, a second by Mr. Waddell. All in favor of that signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That passes unanimously as well. R6C, I have a motion by Mr. Waddell, a second by Mr. Spears. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Yes, I'll recognize Mr. Spears.
I just want to finally say about time. I have been working on this for years now, and we are finally getting some traction and getting this out there. So I want to thank you, staff, for finally getting us here, and let's keep the momentum where we can really advertise and get people employed and trained, which is very important, and just really happy. And thanks to the private sector for their participation in this as well. Just thank you.
The next item of business are our reports. The first item is RP1, which is the council's Naming Facilities Committee. And I will, in a moment, recognize Mr. Barnett, but the mayor has asked that we postpone this until the next meeting when everyone will be present. We are missing 2 members tonight. So I'll ask Mr. Barnett if that is all right with him.
I would honor that request.
I don't believe we even need to vote on that according to,
No vote is required, ma'am, but would you like for that to be the first meeting in November, which I believe, Madam Clerk, is November the 8th, correct?
yes, that's not on a Tuesday. That would be on the Wednesday after the election. So it
So we
would
can
be,
move that to that Tuesday.
it would be Wednesday, November 8th.
Or Wednesday.
Mayor Pro Tem, you're asking that it be continued to council's November 8th. It is an agenda item, so I think we need a motion to continue.
We don't actually, because it's a report and not a resolution.
So you don't need a vote on that? Okay, thank you.
I'm just trying to do what the attorney told me to do.
Sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad.
Totally understand, because she's smarter than I am, so thank you.
Did you want to comment on
Yes,
that?
I have a comment on that. I serve on that naming of facilities meeting with Councilman Barnett and Mayor Pro Tem Haynes. And while there's been, you know, it's a big responsibility. I mean, for what we have done with 929 North Front, and the naming of that building is paramount. And we haven't come to a whole lot of positive thinking about some of the things. We've got some very different opinions up here, but I spoke to the mayor this afternoon on my way down here, and I knew we were going to continue this, but what I would like to just toss out there for discussion is perhaps we could put this out to the public and have the public take a week or two and come back with some pearls of wisdom that they may have. And somewhere out there, there's people may be more creative or give it some thought, and then we could incorporate some of the top 1 or 2 or 3 names in with what the Naming Facilities Committee has already come up with and bring that back at our next meeting.
Mr. Waddell?
Yep, piggyback on Councilman Rivenbark. I actually, before I knew that we would be continuing this, of course, 2 or 3 days ago, I put out a Twitter poll, just to kind of gauge some of the input from the community. Normally don't get a whole lot of Twitter engagement. I'm not, a famous guy, but this, a lot of people were really interested. So I think it's valid to want to seek the input from the community, and I would fully support that.
And perhaps maybe Jared could ramrod that and come up with some kind of a process. That's all I had, ma'am.
Okay.
So I'll ask Mr. Barnett if he will work with Jared and the city manager and come up with the process, and we will hopefully deal with this on November 8th.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Do that.
Mr. Spears.
I know we're all very intellectual people up here, but I don't know if we'll all be here on November the 8th because it'll be the day after the election.
But you'll still be here through the first meeting in December.
The first meeting in December. Oh, okay, I thought you said the 8th.
Well, we're going to discuss this on the 8th, but the new council is not sworn in until December.
No. See, you jumped the gun. That's not what I said. I'm going on vacation on November the 8th.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
Yeah, I just want to put that out there.
Well, I'm happy to be Councilman Spears' proxy that day.
No, thank you. I'll be remote first.
Well, if we want a full complement, we may then again have to delay this, but we will deal with that when we get there.
Okay.
Right? So RP2 is the Council's Appointments Committee for Boards and Commissions, and I will recognize Mr. Rivenbark, the chair of that committee.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I serve as the chair of the Appointments to Boards and Commissions Committee, and I serve along with Councilmember Luke Waddell and Councilmember Neil Anderson. Our staff is obviously Penny Sidbury, our city clerk, and Melissa Huffman, our assistant district attorney. Those two kind of keep us on the straight and narrow. So the first appointment for your consideration is to reappoint Evelyn Adger to the Civil Service Commission for a term to expire 5/18/2026. She would be the council appointee. There are other appointees to that Civil Service Commission, but she would be a council appointee. The second item is the Loan Review Board, and we had consideration of revised guidelines that are attached to this report. This third item would be the Municipal Services District Advisory Committee, and we would reappoint William Bryden as a Municipal Services District resident with a term to expire 7/1/2026. The next one is the New Hanover County City of Wilmington Community Relations Advisory Committee, and we would reappoint Ms. Charlene Mapson with a term to expire 9/20/26, and that would be the person represent Faith, and reappoint Shirley Hands, who would be representative of the business community with a term to expire 9/20/26. The Downtown Parking Advisory Committee, we would appoint Troy Demers as an at-large member with a term to expire 8/1/2026. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, appoint Ingrid Corby to complete the term of Ms. Sullivan with a term to expire 12/7/2023. Planning Commission would reappoint Ace Kofer with a term to expire 9/21/26. Reappoint John Lennon with a term to expire 9/21/26, and reappoint Ron Woodruff with a term to expire 9/21/26. Wilmington New Hanover County Port, Waterway, and Beach Commission, reappoint Jim Hunley as an at-large member with a term to expire 2/28/26. Reappoint Greg Washington at-large with a term to expire 2/28/26, and reappoint Neil Andrew at-large with a term to expire 2/28/26. Sister City Commission, reappoint Sabrina Terry as a representative of Cape Fear Community College, term to expire 9/1/26. Appoint Dawood El Amin at-large, term to expire 9/1/26. Appoint Jennifer Fernandez Villa, a UNCW representative, with a term to expire 9/1/2026. Reappoint Gregory Vogt at-large, term to expire 9/1/26, and remove Travis Matthews, who represented the New Hanover County School System. Joint City-County Workforce Housing Advisory Committee, appoint Roxy Wells as a business education representative with a term to expire 8/4/26. Reappoint Paul Stavavi with Development Community, term to expire 8/4/2026. And last but not least, Encino Sports Park User Group Advisory Committee, appoint Carson Porter, who is a representative from the Hammerhead Soccer Club, with a term to expire 10/17/26. Appoint Laura Schumann, Ultimate Frisbee League, with a term to expire 10/17/24. Appoint Jason Benji, who represents the lacrosse community, with a term to expire 10/17/26, and appoint Brooks Robinson with the rugby group to a term to expire 10/17/25. Madam Pro Tem, I move these items for your consideration.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rivenbark and a second by Mr. Waddell. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. That passes unanimously. Mr. City Manager, are there any items to be brought forward for council? Madam Attorney?
No, ma'am.
Madam Clerk? Mr. Spears?
Yes, ma'am. Early voting starts on Thursday. Just make sure you're registered. If you don't know where your precincts are, let's use early voting to get in and vote. And I don't know what Madam Mayor Pro Tem was insinuating, but I most certainly plan on being here in the first meeting in December. Oh, so, you know, we need everybody to get out and vote. It's important. And I look forward to this season, and I look forward to it being over with. and I look forward to November the 8th for this vacation. I need it. Thank you, Madam
Mr.
Pro Tem.
Rivenbark?
Just to reiterate Councilman Barnett's opening prayer, if you're a praying person, get down on your knees and pray for peace. It's bad over there, and it's just bad, and it's probably going to get a lot worse, but pray for it. Pray about it.
Mr. Waddell? Mr. Barnett?
Okay, yeah, just three quick things. Number one, I want to wish my father-in-law a happy birthday, Reverend Walter Banks White. He lives in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and he's 93 today. So I want to wish him a happy birthday. The second thing is I'm wearing a button called Broadway for a Better World. It's in connection with the Wilson Center. The Wilson Center has a neat program where organizations can get free tickets to Broadway plays. Organizations that are 501c3, and today they've just established a new policy where if your organization is a tax-exempt organization, like a faith-based group or a soccer team, a basketball team, or a football team, Pop Warner League, they have a scholarship program that's open all year long where you can apply for tickets to get kids to see Broadway plays or seniors or young adults. And oftentimes I tell people all the time, if you don't see it, if you can see it, you can become it. And so that's really exciting. And then the third thing, as Councilman Rivenbark said, a lot of stuff is going on in our world, and we definitely need to pray that God brings about peace. So, thank you.
Thank you. Just to follow up on Mr. Spears, just remember that this year you have to take an ID to vote, so be sure to do that. If that concludes our business for this evening, thank you all for taking an interest in your local government, and we stand adjourned.